So making macaroons is actually a lot easier than you think. You only need a couple of things: a mixer, you don't want to whip these by hand, a whisk and a spatula. You'll need a bowl, and then you'll need 2 piping bags. I like to use size 18 or 21 inch. In addition to your bags, you'll need 2 piping tips, size 803 or 805. The smaller the tip, the more precise you can get. The last thing that you'll need is a baking sheet, and then either some parchment paper or a silicone baking mat. Macaroons are very simple. There's only 3 ingredients. Granulated sugar, you can use Domino's, that's fine. Your secret ingredient are aged egg whites. Now it's very easy to age your egg whites. You'll crack it a day or 2 before, put it in a container, cover it, and then put it in the fridge. When you're ready to use them, take them out and let them get room temperature, and then you're good to go. Last ingredient here, almond flour and powdered sugar. Before we're ready to mix our ingredients, I want to make sure that we have our mold ready. All you need is a Sharpie and parchment paper, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a heart. And then I'm going to take this heart and I'm going to put it under my parchment, a second piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to trace it over and over again. And I ripped my parchment paper in half. Now I'm going to lay it on my tray. One last thing that we'll do before we get started is prep our piping bag. I'm going to put our tip in here and wedge it all the way down to the bottom. Wedge it so far that if you turn it upside down, the tip does not fall out of the bag. Next, I'm going to twist, push the twist into the bag, and then I'm going to use a scissor to score the top of this so that I can pull the tip off. I'm going to go ahead and put my bag in my container. First step, we're going to take our almond flour and our powdered sugar, and we are going to place it in a bowl. We're going to take our sugar, our cream of tartar, and our salt. I'm going to take a whisk, and I'm just going to whisk around and make sure I don't have any lumps. Next, we're going to add our aged egg whites. Now, it's important to start whisking by hand. Once everything is light and frothy, we're going to transfer to our mixer. So I like to whip my meringue on high. So at this point, it's not thick yet, it's not ready, but it's the perfect time to add a couple drops of food coloring. I would say 2 or 3 drops should do it. You can always add more later. And you'll notice that at the base, it's not sliding at all, and that's exactly what you want. So it looks like we're done. Kind of looks like taffy, doesn't it? If you would want some more food coloring like I do, it's not deep enough, you can still add some at this point. So I'm going to take a little bit more red, put a few more drops in there, and now I'm going to add my meringue to my almond flour mixture, and I'm going to start to fold them together. When you mix these together, you fold, you don't just mix, because by mixing, you'll release all of that air that you worked so hard to incorporate into our meringue. All right, there we go. Dripping down, that's exactly what you want. So you fill this up. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little dollop of batter in the 4 corners, because I want to secure my parchment paper to the sheet, and I want to make sure later when I do one of my final steps that my sheet does not move around. Now I'm a righty, so I'm going to do this with my right hand on the bottom of the bag, because that's where I have the most control. If you're a lefty, just swap your hands. So I'm going to start with the outline of my heart, and I'm going to fill it in. Super easy. You'll notice that I'm using my left hand to push down the batter so that my bag is full, so that when I squeeze with my right, it comes out easier. Okay, now once all of my hearts are piped, it's important that I tap my tray. The reason why we tap our tray is because we want to make sure that any air bubbles that were just piped into our macaroons are released before we let them get a skin and they go in the oven. I'll explain what getting a skin is in a second, but for now, let's tap. Hold it a foot off your counter, tap it down. No, it's really loud. I'm sorry to the neighbors. Only thing to do now is let it sit and get a skin, and by getting a skin, I mean this. Anytime you have a cream-based soup or a hot chocolate, a cream of broccoli, and it starts to cool, you get that film on the top, right? The same thing happens with your macaroons, and that's what you want. You'll be able to feel it when you have a skin. Right now, if I touch my macaroon, it's going to come off on my hand. But when you have a skin, you can touch your macaroon and it's hard and none of it will transfer to your finger. So our macaroons now have a skin. We're going to put our macaroons in the oven to bake. Every oven bakes differently, so I like to rotate halfway through. I would say 6 minutes, rotate, and then put in for another 6 minutes. But if for whatever reason you're rotating and you see that your oven's browning your macaroons, you can take a wooden spoon and you can stick it between the door and the oven so that there's a little bit of a gap and an opening, and some of that hot air releasing will stop your macaroons from browning. There we go, gorgeous. The way that you test that your macaroons are done is you grab your parchment from the side and you lift it up a little bit and your macaroons should come off clean. They should resist a little bit. If they start to separate, it means that they're underbaked. So I've paired my pink macaroons with my red macaroons and now we're ready to fill. So this is our chocolate cherry filling, and just like you piped, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to follow around the outside and then fill it up in the middle. When you're filling these, you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of room, because the best part and the most fun part of filling your macaroons and assembling them is when you get to squeeze it together. So I'm going to take both macaroons and I'm going to sandwich them together and stop when it hits the end. They're really cute and they taste even better. And voila, you have your Valentine's Day macaroons.